Welcome back here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College. Another in our series of what's going on in the community. We've got a treat today. We've got Robert Smith and we've got Forrest Smith, no relation. Interestingly, my wife is a Smith as far as her maiden name. So there are a lot of Smiths in the world. But today the two Smiths are going to talk about a brand new ministry. We're talking about an opportunity for guys who have made some choices of which maybe they're not proud today, maybe have served a little bit of time, and are now ready to straighten up, to accept Jesus in their life. More importantly, to become a productive, active, contributive member of society. When we come back, we're going to talk about this very exciting project, and we will be right back. Welcome back. As mentioned today, our guests are Robert Smith and Forrest Smith. No relation. The first question I asked today, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you certainly have met Forrest before. Robert, you've got an exciting project. I made the mistake this morning of asking you, well, what have you got going on? And about 40 minutes later, you took a breath. You are excited, you're passionate about this project, and I, for one, appreciate that. Tell us a little bit, a little thumbnail sketch about what this project's all about.
Well, it's to give guys who are coming out of jail and prison who need a place to stay and to teach them the essentials of life and provide their basic needs such as housing, clothing, and food. Because you know, once a man is released from prison, he is given $50 and sent to the gate and said, you know, good luck. He has no training. He has just left. However long time he has done, he has left a world that is totally different now that he is returning to. And he has no tools or equipment to make it into society. And he's going to revert back to what he knows, and that's survival.
You know, how often each of us brings up or complains or talks about the fact that 25% of the people in the world are in prison, and most of those in the United States. Prison, the correctional facilities have become a growth industry, but at some point in time, you run out of room. I know that it's good for the economy, but it's not good for people, and it's certainly not good for society at the end of that day. You yourself experienced some incarceration. Tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Yes, I was 16 years old when I got arrested. I was 17 when I hit prison, and I've had 3 tours. I've been to prison 3 times. I got saved in prison. I got saved in a 6x9 cell at Florida State Prison in March of 1998. And by the grace of God, April 22nd of this year, I've been out 17 straight years without even a speeding ticket, by the grace of God. And not only that, I am a volunteer chaplain now at Holmes Correctional and have been for numerous years. Now they give me keys when I go back in. In 2014, I received Volunteer of the Year award. I got a real nice plaque from the Department of Corrections and numerous awards. I've wrote 3 books. 2 of them have been published. Governor Bush endorsed my first one. Governor Chris endorsed my second. God has shows me that I had to break that cycle I was living in, and so it is with these other men. They have to break that cycle to show them that there is a better way to be a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen without having to go out there and revert back to survival and steal, sell drugs, or whatever it may be.
Forrest, when you were recently on the show, you mentioned, Robert, you mentioned this project, and you said, this is something I'd really like to talk about. I think your viewers would be interested. More importantly, going forward, you're going to be looking for benefactors. You're going to be looking for people to contribute. You're looking for people to volunteer time and resources and to get involved. Talk about your involvement with this and how you met Robert and how we come to what we have today.
Well, I truly believe the Lord brought Robert across our path probably almost 2 years ago, and we began to just get to know each other, understand his heart for this ministry, and we began looking for the right property to where he could restart House of Grace Prison Transition Ministry, and the Lord's led us to where we are now, and we have reorganized the board of directors, and I've been asked to serve on that, and gladly will do that. And so what we want to do is kind of connect some of the local churches, obviously through the West Florida Baptist Association and the local community. We want to connect them to helping get this restarted, get it off the ground again, but then also help it continue to go and make an impact in these guys' lives. We do a lot of different ministry through the local churches here, but we don't have a lot that is focused on those in prison or transitioning out of prison and back into society. And what a key time for those men to be able to disciple them, to help them integrate back into society. And if the church can't do that and be a part of that, then we're really missing a great opportunity there. And so that's why we're excited about being just partnering with Robert Smith and House of Grace.
Now, Robert, House of Grace is actually a 501c3 nonprofit, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is. We got established June 19th, 2002.
Okay. And you've operated a facility in the past in Bonifay. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. We had a house there on Week Street. The man that I worked for was a doctor out of Panama City, and he allowed me to renovate one of his trailers in the beginning. And we had some very good success stories. We had a man that just called me a couple of months ago and said, Robert, I just want to thank you for what you have done in my life and showing me a different direction. He said, I'm married now to a beautiful woman. I got a beautiful little girl. I've got a steady job. I'm not on the drugs no more. And all the glory goes to God. But I just thank God that I played a part in this man's life to have him change. And now he is a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen with a beautiful family.
You mentioned in the pre-show that you had met with law enforcement, you had met with city officials in Bonifay. Talk a little bit about how that has progressed, those meetings with whom you met, and where that brings us to today.
Yes, we don't have nothing to hide. The House of Grace Beulah and Beulah Land is our ultimate gift, or ultimate goal, as you would say. The House of Grace, we want to be a aspect. We want to serve the community that we live in to show people that God can change people's lives. Now, when I said Beulah Land is a Christian retreat. We want to have a worship center. We want to have a restaurant, a daycare, a dormitory for our veterans. We want to be able to serve anybody who is in need in the community and the surrounding areas. And I took this, my idea, to the mayor and the city council and the chief of police, Chris Wells, and they were all excited about it, and they're all for it, and they're behind us in this.
You could argue that there's probably no better geographical location than Holmes County, at least in my sphere of influence, because of the opportunities that you will have there. There are a lot of people who need these services in any community, and Holmes County doesn't have a franchise on this, but there does seem to be a need. For instance, exemplified by the farm, currently Jeremiah Gwynn. It was originally, basically the seed was germinated by a group of sheriffs and pastors from these surrounding counties. I know Jeep Sullivan played a part in the very beginning. So there seems to already be an acceptance on the part of Bonifay and Holmes County residents to enable these things to happen, because not just any neighborhood is going to want. The knee-jerk reaction, and we spoke about this briefly in the pre-show, is to say, no, we don't want it here. A great idea, but no, we don't want it around here. Forrest, you very succinctly explained your thoughts, and that why, if done in the wrong way, you wouldn't want it next door to you, but done in the right way, and this sounds like you've got a plan for that you would be okay with that. Talk about that.
Well, as Robert mentioned, for these guys getting out of prison, they're just getting to the gate, $50, it's almost an expectancy that they're going to do something to come back. So, I would prefer, as a person in the society, in our community, I would prefer there be a program that helps with accountability. It helps reintegrate these ex-offenders back into society. And now, if it's a program that's based around the principles that God teaches us in the Bible, and Jesus is the center of it, then what better way? Because Jesus is the only one that's really going to change these behaviors of the men that are getting out of prison. And so, in that case, where there is accountability, where they're integrating them back into society, they are helping them find a job or some sort of employment to keep them busy and to keep them building a skill set. I just think that's the model there is just perfect And so, yes, I mean, I wouldn't mind living in an area where that was located, because that's better than these guys getting out and going to live wherever they can, and there's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of discipleship. There's no older father figure or mentor to help integrate them back into society. So I just think this is a great thing. I wish we had more of these across the Panhandle.
Robert, when I talk about Bonifay and Holmes County being in a really good geographical opportunity, part of it is that it's a rural area. You can't take a guy who is fighting demons and put him in downtown Atlanta or in Tallahassee, Florida, certainly down on the world's most beautiful beaches in Panama City, and not expect them to start running with that wrong crowd. At the end of the day, you've got to at least physically remove him from the environment in which he got himself into trouble, and maybe let him focus a little bit. And then once you've got somebody in the right path, they can obviously do whatever they want to do. You showed me in the pre-show some pencil sketches of quite an ambitious project. You say that you've got some properties. Talk about this piece of property that you're looking at.
This piece of property is approximately 41 acres. It already has the amenities that we need. We got sewer, water, and RV hookups there, because we want to turn it into a Christian retreat. And as I spoke a while ago, we have took this to the mayor. The mayor is excited, and for what we want to do, the land is big enough to accommodate the facilities that we want to put there. And this is not about us, or it's not about me. It's about the family of God coming together, loving God and serving people. Those, as you talk about this rural area, there is so many poor, hurting people all around us. We should be that good Samaritan. This is the most richest country in the world, and we waste more, and we forget about the people that are hurting. We throw it away before we'll give it to somebody else who is in need. I'm talking about on Beulah Land. We want to build a sanctuary, a restaurant. We want to have a clothes store, a food bank, where people, and the people who are in need, we want this to be all free to them, because we know they can't afford it. Our hearts, if you see somebody hurting, not only children, but families being torn apart, if your heart don't go out to that person or that family, you need to check yourself. You really do. Seriously.
To me, it sounds like you're a huge asset to the economic development portion of Holmes County, and certainly Bonifay, and a very key part to some of that development that's already being done down there around the interstate. You know, that's Highway 79 project right now with Bonifay, Holmes County, and Washington County. You're just north of that in this area that you're talking about. But if you're talking about the sanctuary and the church in itself, but then more importantly from an economic point of view, you talk about a restaurant, you've mentioned something about potentially a bowling alley. It doesn't take much to argue with the fact that you're going to be putting people to work, you're going to be generating monies, you're going to be paying taxes, maybe or maybe not, depending on your tax status, but nonetheless, you're going to be employing people, giving them something productive to do. And even before all that, the building of this facility, you mentioned possibly being able to use some inmate labor, certainly as a teaching opportunity or learning opportunity for the construction process. Talk about the conversations you've been having with the warden and assistant warden.
Yes, I talked to the warden. In fact, the warden and this.
Now, what correctional institute are we talking about?
This is at Holmes Correctional. Warden Summers and Assistant Warden Miss Brock and the senior chaplain Mark Pickett come with me to the meeting that we had in front of the mayor as support for me. I'd like for us, as the family of God, to hook up with the Department of Corrections and work with the Department of Corrections to help these men who are coming out. And our future goal is to have a woman's home to help women, because there is women in prison. You have a federal prison over in Mariana, you have Gadsden, and several other women's prisons in Lowell and Ocala. We want to be able to serve our community and the surrounding communities, to give these men and women coming out of jail and prison the tools to keep them from returning. That cuts down recidivism rate. That cuts down your tax dollars going to pay for prisons. It takes away not having to pay taxes for more security. So I mean, it's a win-win situation. It may look like it's expensive. we've come up with the idea, and we've sat down with some figures, and you're looking at about a $5 million project. But that's nothing for God. It's whereas our heart is. God will honor our hearts. If our hearts is into serving Him and serving people, He will make that way.
In the case of the farm, when the pastors and the sheriffs came together, there was discussion about being able to use some of the drug seizure money. When they seized drugs and cash off the interstates in the surrounding areas, those monies partially get returned to the departments that made the busts, and those cannot be used for salaries. Those monies cannot be used for salaries, but they have to be used for other projects. Many sheriffs around here, including our own here in Washington County, use them for nonprofit donations. They use them for all sorts of things, and as it pertained to that facility, they talked about those monies possibly going in that direction. Aside from money, Forrest, today, moving forward, what are your most immediate needs?
Well, excuse me. Most immediately, we are waiting to get the lease agreement to be able to move into this home and renovate it. There's a 2,500 square foot home that will need essentially gutting and then renovating. And so there's always financial constraints with that, but manpower to actually help with that and help to renovate and get this up and running, get House of Grace back up and running there in the Bonifay area. So that's one thing. And then more than anything else, Robert and I always talk about this, is just prayer. It's just prayer. We've been praying over this for almost 2 years since I've known Robert, and we've seen God answer those prayers and get us to this point. So just having some prayer partners, having some folks that we know will be, because I believe as we pray, then God will lead us to be involved in some capacity. And He will answer those prayers and honor those. And so those are, the most immediate needs right now.
When you talk about the need for labor, we talked briefly about possibly some inmate labor. Both the local jails and the prisons have that opportunity to get these guys out of jail, sort of a trustee position. But I would imagine that also when you start looking at community service workers, teen court, for instance, a lot of young adults out there made poor choices, have that opportunity to work off that relatively minor offense as long as it's not a felony. Lots of hours that need to be filled. It seems to me that would be a great natural project to have that kind of use.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we're excited about being able to use that. And I think a lot of teaching and discipleship can go along during that time. Folks can...
everybody wins.
Right, everybody wins. We get a chance to kind of model Christian behavior around those people. And maybe, like you were talking about, that are working off probationary times, before they make a decision that ends up in jail. And maybe something like that, volunteering and working and serving through helping us renovate this and get it up and running, it may prevent them from making and furthering down that wrong road to travel.
Sometimes with pretrial interventions, when somebody has that opportunity to have another path besides incarceration, they again have that community service. What better learning environment than to have people that have made poor choices along with people that are working within those churches, and then just the community all coming together, being able to have a common dialogue, the narrative being, this is not the way to go, and everybody learning. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time today. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, that, I'd like to see the communities to pull together in this, and if they need to and they want to contact me, they can contact me at my phone is 850-373-8256. If they decide they want to donate financially or anything that can be sold to finances that could be put into the House of Grace to continue to keep, because you got to remember, these guys have nothing when they come out, nothing, no shoes or nothing. So anyway, and or they can contact Forrest at the West Florida Baptist Association. Our mailing address is Post Office Box 883, Bonifay, Florida 32425. And we will greatly appreciate anything you do, more so your prayers, because we know God answers prayers.
We mentioned briefly that you had a website under development. What's that domain name when it is up and running? Do you know?
It should be House of Grace Prison Ministries.
houseofgraceprisonministries.com?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So look for that, currently under development. Forrest, anything you can add?
We just, again, appreciate your prayers, appreciate you having us on, and when we do get this up and running, we hope that you'll have us back on, and we maybe can, in the future, interview some of the guys who are a part of this program and that are benefiting from it.
Yeah, and as important, maybe making some trips over to your project while you're under development, shooting there, letting people know what's going on. Sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Amen.
Amen.
So thanks to both of you for taking the time today.
Thank you, my
for having
friend.
us.
Our guests today have been Robert Smith and Forrest Smith. Once again, no relation, telling a very compelling story. You hear these types of stories more and more. There's more of a thrust toward truly reintegrating those who have made poor choices back into society. Incarceration is not the answer. We can put 50% of the people in jail, and it's not going to alleviate anything. It just makes for a smarter criminal. Hats off to Robert and Forrest. This is a labor of love. This sounds like a lot of work. Once again, if you'd like to get involved, you heard what their contact information is. You can rewind this and listen to those phone numbers. We encourage you to find out more about it. As Forrest mentioned, we'll be carrying their story over time and making trips down to Bonifay, taking a look at the project as it progresses. We'll be right back.